So I am back from E3. I went over the past 3.5 or 4 days, and now after playing a bunch of different games, there's one of them I want to tell you about, as you could probably tell by the title of this video. So during E3 2018, Cyberpunk 2077, the next game by CD Projekt, was shown behind closed doors by appointment. So basically at E3 you get a gamer pass that's like general admission, but then there's also an industry pass if you work in the industry, an exhibitor pass if you're, having an exhibit there, or a media pass if you're in media, or that's what YouTubers get. So those with the media, exhibitor, or industry pass could have tried to get an appointment to see CD Projekt Red's new project. Of course, that being Cyberpunk 2077, I was fortunate enough to get an appointment, and at that, they basically showed us 50 minutes of gameplay. They had a bunch of us in a room, one guy commentating over it with a microphone, and another guy just playing it for about an hour. So despite me going to E3, there is nothing I'm going to make a video on except Cyberpunk, because it by far looked the best to me, and I would say it's actually the game I'm probably most excited for going forward, even more excited than Fallout 76. Although to be clear, they weren't actually showing off Fallout 76 at E3. You could play Blades, you could play Rage, but you couldn't play Fallout 76. Cyberpunk 2077 is going to take place in the year 2077. It's in Night City, which is in I think Northern or Southern California, somewhere in California. It's meant to be a pretty big metropolitan area. And think of not New York City, but more of a downtown LA, a pseudo city, but not the biggest or most built up city in the world. The setting of this one is pretty distraught. There's a lot of crime, a lot of bad stuff going on, and it's definitely not a utopia. If anything, it's the opposite. There's crime lords, competing factions, and cops trying to get power. And also one of the major takeaways was all of the individuals you see are actually hybrid human and robot. You could actually get augmentations put into your body. At one stage in the demo, you actually get a new one added to you. So the people you encounter actually have varying degrees of augmentation on them, which one of the factions they explore are this set of humans that really strive for more augmentation, to the point where they almost don't look human anymore. The layout of the game itself, and apparently a few people are making this comparison, is almost Grand Theft Auto-esque. I feel like I got heavy Grand Theft Auto vibes from what was going on in the background. It's an open world city. You can do whatever you want. You can steal cars from people, you can go to shops, you can trade, you could do different quests, and there were people everywhere. It's definitely going to have the most people in city centers just walking around, and they did mention all of those people have their own individual loops. So they're going to walk from place to place, go to their home, go to their job, things like that. And that's really one of the major things that sucked me into this game is the world. The city that you see the setting of is just awesome. It makes you want to go door to door, see what kind of weird things you could find. They said it was broken up into 6 regions of sorts, so I would imagine this would kind of pan out as maybe one's going to be more of a slums, one will be a richer area, things like that, things we've seen in games previously. They also put a huge amount of emphasis on the character builder here. So although a lot of the stuff was pretty standard, you could pretty much customize your character from the ground up, one of the parts that really stood out to me is something that was almost like it's from Mount & Blade. If you ever played the Mount & Blade games, more or less, there's this mechanic in those games that when you're setting up your character, you choose your different motivations. Why are you going into this land? Is it bloodlust, revenge over the loss of a loved one, things like that. And depending on what you pick, depends on which kind of skills you are going to get or which bonuses you'll get to certain skills. Cyberpunk 2077 had something very similar. I think there was 3 different options. I forget what they were in exactly, but it was more or less your motivations as a character or why you were here exactly. And what they said in regards to those is depending on what you pick here while you're creating your character will determine choices you have later on in the game, how certain things play out later on in the game, and it all around seemed very interesting. The bulk of what they showed us was actually a quest where more or less you had to get $50,000 in order to get this robot for whatever reason. And after getting assigned the quest, there was tons of different dialogue prompts and just different options all along the way. I'd say that's one of the most interesting parts about this game because I don't know if it's going to be as cool as they're pitching it, but they certainly made it seem like there are literally going to be thousands of outcomes depending on which decisions you make where. For example, you needed $50,000 to get this robot. You don't just have $50,000, or at least you didn't in this demo. So instead what happens is you partner with a military faction or corporation, you get $50,000 from them, but they actually give you a little card to pay with and it inserts a virus at the place where you go to pay, and then that changes things. During the demo they said alternatively you could have just never interacted with that military faction and just went and got the $50,000 yourself. That would have totally changed the way the events played out there. Maybe instead of having to shoot your way out of that situation, you could have just talked your way out, had it be much more peaceful, maybe even gain the allegiance of the people you were just trading with. And now that's just one instance. There was little instances like that all along the way. In your first interaction with the military faction, they pull a gun on you. You had the choice. Do you want to try and wrestle the gun away? Do you want to try and talk your way out of it, or do nothing? Each of those different options would have had lasting effects throughout the remainder of that quest based on what options you would have next, or even how the story progressed. It was kind of hard to tell if this demo, if at the end of the day you would still kind of wrap around and do the same thing, or if based on that one choice in that one instance, the quest would kind of play out totally differently. But they made it seem like it would be the former, where things would play out totally differently depending on which choices you make at all these little pauses, and that's exciting to me. And in addition, they had a ton of skill checks all over the place. So when you were actually in the facility trying to escape, depending on how you could or couldn't escape, depending on what kind of perks or skills you did have, those two aspects felt very Fallout, and it was really interesting to see it play out. It almost felt like what I would imagine people wanted from Fallout 4, but we didn't get. True consequences from your actions, making it so your different playthroughs feel different, skill checks all the time, so you can actually really have like different playthroughs depending on how you spec out your character. There's also a ton more, but those were the things from the gameplay that really just stood out to me over those 50 minutes. And yeah, I'm very excited for this game, and this is coming from someone who didn't like The Witcher 3 at all, and I know I'm in the minority there. Oh yeah, one other thing that I kind of forgot to mention, destructible environments, or at least pseudo-destructible environments. When you were shooting someone, you shot them through a wall and the wall started crumbling away. They never verbally talked about this at all, and there was no question and answer session, but it looked really cool, and I want to see more about that and just see to what extent can you do that, because you kind of shot away an entire wall and you could almost go through the newly made opening. Either way, that's my thoughts on that. It was definitely the coolest thing I saw at this E3 by far. Like, it wasn't even close, and I think a lot of people agree with me. It was definitely the talk of E3 for those who saw this thing. You probably won't see the demo I just witnessed because there was a ton of nudity all throughout it, but I would expect something from them soon. A lot of people are speculating a 2019 release date for Cyberpunk, earlier in 2019 at that. So maybe at one of these upcoming conferences like Gamescom or something like that, we'll actually see a full reveal of Cyberpunk 2077, and well, you should be excited. If you're a Fallout fan, you should be excited. If you're just a gamer in general, you should definitely be excited. As always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time.